When I'm working with new facilitators, I'm often asked, do we have to run an icebreaker, especially if it's with a group that knows each other well already? The answer to that question is yes, although let's not call them an icebreaker. Let's call them a connection activity or setting the scene or anything else. In this video, I'm going to share how an icebreaker works so that you understand why it's important to do this kind of activity at the beginning of every session. Hi, I'm Kerry Price. I'm the founder of the Facilitators Network, and I use the principles of deliberate generosity to make sure that no meeting or workshop is ever wasted. I've been facilitating for 20 odd years, and in that time I've led thousands of meetings, workshops and community conversations. Now I help other trainers and facilitators do it well too. So you want to know how an icebreaker works? Well, I can tell you how they're supposed to work, and then I can tell you how you can make them better. Way back in the 1980s, someone thought that the idea of warming up a group before we get into the work was a great idea. And they developed all these cheesy, cringy questions and activities that were supposed to get people out of the comfort zone. Unfortunately, most traditional icebreakers do anything but that. So instead, let me give you the 5 things you need to keep in mind when planning your icebreakers so they actually work the way they're intended to. The first thing to keep in mind is that a good icebreaker or a good connection activity gives people a chance to fully arrive. Traditional icebreakers tend to be fast-paced and crazy and sending people out of their comfort zone. And that means people are coming from outside craziness to inside craziness, and they haven't even had a chance to land properly in the room. So when you're designing an icebreaker or a connection activity, think about the pace and the presence that you want to bring to the room and design something that allows people to properly settle. That something might be turning to a neighbour, some individual reflection, a poem, a proverb, something that lets people arrive and leave whatever it is they need to leave at the door. The second thing that makes a good icebreaker or connection activity is something that builds psychological safety. And there's 2 parts to this. Dr. Gabor Mate says that safety is not the absence of fear, but the presence of connection. So in other words, if you're wanting a group to share with each other and feel safe to contribute, you need to build connection in the room first. Now that means going beyond trivia. Nobody cares whether you like pineapple on pizza or what your favourite cereal is. Building connection is about getting below the surface and finding out what makes the other person human. Questions that go a little bit deeper than what you might normally imagine. Of course, psychological safety is about giving people a chance to take a little bit of a risk, not a deep, dark risk in the first go. So crafting questions that feel a little bit stretchy, but not so uncomfortable that you want people to run a mile. The best questions give people enough direction to provide focus, but enough scope to choose how vulnerable they want to be. The third thing that makes a good icebreaker or a good connection activity is that it sets the scene for contribution. So back in the dark old ages, learning was all about chalk and talk. I'm the expert at the front of the room and you will just listen. Nowadays we know that if we want people to learn, then they need to contribute to the conversation. We need to set the scene for that early, and an icebreaker or a connection activity allows that to happen. So within the first 3 or 4 minutes, you want people contributing to the conversation, either in pairs or small groups or popcorning into the room. For goodness sake, don't do a round robin where people start at one side of the room and each introduce themselves. 20 minutes later, the last person in the circle still hasn't had a chance to speak. Good connection activities get people contributing early. Fourth thing that makes a good connection activity or icebreaker is that it connects people to the purpose of the session. So I like to think of the role of an icebreaker or a connection activity a bit like an on-ramp to a motorway. It kind of warms people up and gets people merging into the purpose of the conversation. And that's far more effective than a set of traffic lights where you go from a standing start, a standing stop, where they go from one to another. The good icebreaker or connection activity connects to the purpose of the session, and therefore it seems more meaningful or purposeful for the people taking part. The fifth reason it's important to include icebreakers or connection activities at the beginning of your session is that it gives you a chance to practice deliberate generosity. And what I mean by that is, as a facilitator, it's your job to give participants what they need, what they're there for. And you don't know what they need or what they want to get out of the session unless you ask them. So a good icebreaker or connection activity allows you to unpack a little bit about how people are feeling as they arrive in the room. What would be most useful for them in this session? What do they already know, and what would they like to leave knowing more about? If you don't make time for those sorts of questions, then anything you deliver over the course of a workshop may not hit the mark. Of course, there's not just one magical activity that covers all of these things in every context for every group. So it's helpful to have a whole bunch of different icebreaker or connection activities in your back pocket. In my next video, Meaningful Icebreaker Activities, I share 4 really cool activities using the humble phone, as a starting point for conversation. The link to that video is in the description below. Go check it out.